Welcome back to Alluring Fishing. Today's topic is spinning for Tailor. Thank you for joining me, and I appreciate your support. I hope these videos are informative and that it helps you to catch more fish. Tailor have always fascinated me. It's one of those fish that I was very fascinated by when I was a young child, seeing how people caught them on bait and the type of rigs that they used, and just the sheer excitement and enjoyment of catching something off the surf where, you know, it looks like there's nothing going on and then suddenly someone pulls a fish out and you wonder how they did it. And when you're a child and you're watching this, you think, wow, these people must really know what they're doing, and then eventually you figure out how to do it yourself. So those days everyone was kind of using bait and it was the way to do it. Today things have progressed, and although a lot of people still use bait to catch Tailor, I prefer spinning for them, because I just find that a lot easier. I don't have to carry the bait around with me and sit around and wait, which is quite boring sometimes. I like to walk the beach, get a bit of exercise, and spin while I go. And over the years I've tried to find the best setup for that and tried a lot of stuff, gone and bought a lot of things that didn't work, and got to a point now where I found what works for me, and I want to share that, so maybe you guys can use that information to catch more fish yourselves. So there's two rigs that I use. The first is a smaller rig, an 8'6". I like these rods from Tailor, and they tend to do a good job, nice and light. This one's rated 7 to 28 grams. It's a 3 to 6 kilo rod, 8'6". And on that I've got a Stratic 3000, trusty Stratic. This is the lightweight one, the CI4, and that's perfect for these sort of 28 gram maximum size lures. So when we talk about a 28 gram, this is what we're talking about. I like to use the iron candies. This works really well on dawn or dusk. Has a really nice action. I've replaced the hook. I've put this long assist hook on, which definitely helps with the hook set, which I find works better than a treble. And that's probably my favorite one in that size. And my next favorite would be the Savage Gear. Again, I've replaced the hook on that, put on a single, and a swivel at the back. Now the reason why I do this is just that I find it's been more effective not having a treble. Two reasons: the treble makes a bit of damage to the fish, and the single hook tends to do less damage to the fish and make the fish easier to release. This is called a North Stream. Bought these on eBay. I think they come from Norway, and very effective. It's got a decent action, and it also has UV here that you can charge up with a UV light in a couple of seconds, which makes it visible after dark. The iron candy Kuta, the whole lure can be charged up with a UV light, which makes it visible after dark as well. So very effective just on dusk and dawn. So those would be matched perfectly to that 8'6" rod, and will get your casting distance into the breakers or beyond, slightly beyond. The second rig is a slightly larger or longer sea bass. This is the new sea bass, and this one's a 10 to 40 gram, 5 to 9 kilo, 10'6". What I like about these rods is that they got really strong action. Well, they're strong rods, but they've got a nice action, so you can flick that lure really quick and really far, and that will, the 10'6" rod will take up to a 60 gram lure. Even though, you know, it's rated here, it says 10 to 40, it will definitely flick. I've got some iron candies that are 45, 50 gram, and it flicks them no problem. I've got that connected up to 4000 Stratic. This is the new Stratic. Well, not new anymore, I think there's already a new one, you know, you can never keep up, but this one's reasonably new, and it's an exceptionally good reel. Very well made, very durable, doesn't corrode, and you can spin all day for ages with this. Doesn't really have anything that I fault it on. So not too expensive, reasonably priced. A lot of other reels that I've tried that didn't really hold up to the conditions of the beach, that have corroded and had a very short lifespan, you know, a year or less. So this is my new Stratic, but the old Stratic that I had, the old FI, was honestly, I used that for 4 years, no problem. So don't look past one of these. Excellent reel. The lures to match that up to, again, prefer the Iron Candy brand, and specifically because these lures have got a really good action. It's a similar one to what I showed you earlier. I think this is a 47 gram, and can be charged up with a UV light. The usual colors, something shiny for the daytime. A pink is good on early morning when the sun is rising, and something that looks reasonably natural, that looks like a pilchard, that'll do the trick. And these are available online. I get them from a shop called Tailor HQ in WA. Can't buy them locally, unfortunately. Nobody really knows about them, not common to Australia. The other Iron Candies which I like, same color again. This is called the Bullet. This is a 47 or 45 gram. Again, UV chargeable, good at dawn and dusk, and similar story. The pink early light, the flash colors for clean water, daytime use when there's a bit of sun. Same story. So what I've got here is also a couple of others. The bigger North Stream, which will go with the 10'6" rod. I do use, the standard stuff. The good old, spoons, the Halco twisties. These do produce fish. I just find they're not as effective. You'll definitely catch fish on these, but the Iron Candy will catch more. Well, in my experience, where I am. Again, for clean water, a couple of teeth marks on there. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the concept of what it entails to catch tailor, to spin for them. Firstly, you want to pick times of day. Time of day is critical. You don't want to be out there all day long. My experience is that they're operating, really between a very short window and sun coming up, just before the sun comes up, until maybe an hour or so after the sun comes up. And don't get me wrong, they'll be there all day. It's just whether you're going to catch them or not. That's the difference. And from sun, half an hour before sundown until the sun is setting, very good time. The other thing to keep note of is that Tailor also feed a bit more in overcast conditions. I'm not sure why that is, but that's just the way, what I've experienced. And the approach that you need to take, obviously, is not to stay in one spot. You walk the beach, look for gutters, and go at the right tide. So when you get the tide that coincides with the time of day, which is a rising tide coming to, if you've got a high tide at, let's say, an hour after sunrise, that would be ideal, or a high tide an hour after sunset. So those two environments would give you a rising tide leading up to high tide, leading up to a change of light, which would be the ideal time to target them. And the idea is really just to move. If you don't find them, you move, and they move up and down the beach. So you need to move up and down the beach until your paths overlap, and then you'll be into them. The other thing that you can do is you can jig for them. So these are Maria shorecasters or shore trickers. You obviously connect your line to the front. You can jig off the rocks. These are very effective. I've caught really nice tailor on these. I've caught salmon on these as well, and I've also caught flathead on these. You can use these in the same way as you use a plastic, but just get you that extra casting distance. And which a plastic wouldn't. You know, you're not going to cast a plastic anywhere near the distance that you'll cast one of these. And not to say that you always have to cast far to find fish, but with Tailor you kind of need to get into the white water, and if that's a fair distance off, then you need to be able to do that. So plastics will work just as well, but you know, the Tailor are going to smash the plastic and eat it to pieces, and the hook is in the wrong place. So if you're after Tailor and you're using plastics, I mean, obviously you will have experienced pain and loss. You won't be doing that again. So quickly move on to my 5 favorites. Well, actually I must just take one out because my one favorite is not in there. So we call it my 6 favorites. There we go. So favorite for low light conditions, iron candy. Then favorite metal that looks like, you know, chromey, is definitely this Spaniard Raider. Now this lure has an offset, and I think that's the key thing. Now don't make the mistake of going out and buying any old chromey or any old metal, because they're not all the same. These lures clearly have an offset, and they look like they're escaping bait fish in the water. There's a lot of metals on the market and most of them do nothing, and I think that's probably what I'm trying to emphasize with this video, is that don't go and buy something that looks like it does nothing. And this is an effective lure. Buy this from BCF. If you pull it through the water and you just watch it, you will see that it darts from side to side and it looks like an escaping baitfish. 90% of metals don't do that. They just pull straight through the water. They look like they are dead. That just looks like something being towed through the water. So that is the real problem. Most of the stuff that's on the market is junk, in my opinion. I mean, doesn't catch fish. So that's whether, yeah, maybe someone else catches fish with them. That's fine. I accept that. But for me, what I've found is these work, and I've tried a lot of stuff. Believe me, I've probably tried 50 or 60 different metals over the last 4 or 5 years, and these are the ones that consistently catch. The blue, there was another color of the Raider as well, which we don't get anymore. It's like a speckled kind of pattern on it. Maybe that'll come back on. And again, you'll see that I've taken the hook off this, changed it round, put the single on the back, got rid of that treble. These are just standard big guns, mustad big guns. You buy a packet of 20 or so and they last a while. I think it's the size 1.0. So those are my favorites, and they work, and they've caught me many fish, and they don't and one of the good things about the iron candy is that the finish is really good. Finish doesn't come off. A lot of the stuff that you buy lasts a couple of casts and you know, a couple of fish, and then it's chuck it away. These are a typical example of it. Although they're really good lure, they catch a lot of fish, the finish doesn't last, so you have to buy a lot of them. Kind of buy them in bulk. Okay, so then these are some other things that work. GT ice cream, can charge that up as well. Glow color does a great job. This is it's kind of like a surface sinking popper thing. Basically cast it out, let it sink, and wind it to the surface, and then it will dart along on the surface like an escaping baitfish. So it does a very similar job to a popper, but you don't have to put in nearly the same amount of effort as you would with a popper. So the colors that I found work are the pearl, the green looks like a Tailor, the glow, and then this one I tried out, tried this up at Fraser Island, worked really well. Yeah, it's a dual adagio. I bought it off eBay from Shimreels, and does well. It's an effective lure. It's just doesn't cast very well because it doesn't have. It's like you know, it's not very aerodynamic. But still, these are incredibly aerodynamic. These things can cast further probably than anything else. I think this weighs about 50 grams, 40 47 or 50 grams, somewhere around there. So they can really get far out and behind the breakers. This is a Bass Day bungee cast which I bought recently. I haven't caught anything on it yet. Certainly hoping to. Casts quite well, not as far as the others, but has a good action in the water. It's got a little fin on the back, which really makes it attractive. Looks good, but hasn't caught anything yet, so hopefully soon will. The next thing, I just want to take you through the vest. So it's like the concept of fly fishing. This is a kayaking vest I bought from BCF. Have a little pair of pliers there, got a nail clipper to cut line with, a pair of braid scissors, one spare, put something on that, space for your phone, space for your car keys, something you could put a light in the side. I carry this lip grip just hooked on the side, always handy. It's a real cheapie. It's a copy of the Berkeley, which I've got one of those as well, but this one, you know, just for the sea. I don't really care if this gets messed up. I can get another one. Aldi get these every year. They're about $7. It's exactly the same as a Berkeley item, so no point spending 40 bucks on one when you can get it for next to nothing. Hook that onto your jacket. Nice thing about the jacket, it's got the pockets in front. You can put 2 boxes. I mean, I generally, if I go spinning, I'll take my box of favorites, like so. I have another box of these smaller ones, you know, depending on what I want to do, and that's it. You know, travel light, walk the beach, and you're bound to be into a few fish. I mean, the retrieve is pretty simple. You don't have to do anything special. If you use the right lure, you don't really have to impart any action into the metal. You just wind it at a steady speed. You can give it a few flicks, a bit of twitching, and that also helps to let it sink down to the floor. And you can jig it up as well, even if you're not using the jig style of lure. If you're not getting any hits, what I have noticed, especially in days where the light is good, and if the sun, you know, we're on the east coast here, so if the sun is setting and you can actually see the sun in the waves, and you can often see the tailor in the waves, and sometimes you can actually see them striking the lure or chasing the lure, and then you can see if you need to slow it down. And often I've been spinning quite fast, and I've seen them chasing it and not catching it, and I've just slowed it down a little bit and then got the hook up. So I think that's an important thing. If you can have that ability to just keep an eye out to see where your lure is, and if anything's chasing it, often you'll see the fish in the breakers, and whole schools of them, in fact, and you'll know that they're there. So yeah, that's kind of the info that I have. It's worked well for me. It's taken me many years to crack the code that works for me, but ultimately I think all of the stuff what I've showed you today will work. You don't have to go and spend all the money that I've spent. I mean, if you literally go and buy what's in this box, maybe five lures, 6 lures, get one of those rods for they go anywhere between 150 to 200 bucks, depending on what deals you can get at BCF. So literally for 250 for a rod and a set of lures, and maybe 200 bucks for the reel, yeah, you're into a good setup that will last you a long time, and you pretty much get good enjoyment out of it, and you don't have to waste your time with bait. The other good thing, you know, that you can do is you can start getting into going for bigger stuff, like catching tailor and then using that as live baits on a slider, which is something that I'll show in one of the videos that I'm going to make. We'll catch a tailor, put it out on a live slider, and see what we get, and that should be interesting. Once again, thanks for watching. I hope this has been informative. If there's any questions you have, you're welcome to, you know, put some comments on the video. If you like what I'm showing you, welcome to subscribe. Appreciate you watching. Tight lines. Cheers.